He threw out his pregnant fiancée at the hospital. She married his billionaire boss. Now he's fired by saying, "I lost a queen for a promotion that never came." The greatest revenge story ever told. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Davies Stories. May the Almighty bless every soul watching this with the courage to leave people who see you as obstacles instead of blessings. May every woman remember that her worth is not measured by the man who cannot see her value, but by the God who created her priceless. May every man learn that kindness is never weakness, and cruelty always comes back to collect. If your heart believes in justice, hit that like button. If love means more to you than money, write in the comments, "I stand with Maya." Some men reveal their true character in boardrooms, others reveal it on hospital curbs. And Derek was about to show Maya exactly who he'd always been, just in time for the one man who mattered most to be watching. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Hospital emergency entrance cast harsh shadows across the wet pavement. Rain misted down in a cold drizzle, the kind that soaked through clothes slowly, mercilessly. Maya Brooks clutched her swollen belly with trembling hands, her white maternity gown clinging to her skin, elegant jewelry glinting under the ambulance lights as another wave of pain shot through her body. Derek didn't even turn off the engine. "I can't do this right now, Maya," he snapped, checking his Rolex for the third time in 2 minutes. His jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, rather than the woman beside him who was carrying his child. The CEO dedication ceremony starts in 20 minutes. Do you understand what that means? 20 minutes to make the impression that will determine my entire career. Maya gasped as another contraction hit. "Derek, please, something's wrong. The baby will be fine," he interrupted coldly, already leaning across her to push open the passenger door. "Hospitals deal with this every day. You're acting like you're the first woman to ever go into labor." "But I don't have my insurance card, my phone, Figure it out, Maya." His voice was ice. "I've carried you long enough. This is my moment, and I'm not letting you ruin it by being dramatic. If you would never abandon your pregnant partner at the hospital just to get ahead at work, hit that subscribe button right now." The door slammed. Tires screeched. And Maya Brooks stood alone under the emergency sign, watching the taillights of Derek's BMW disappear into the rain, not knowing that 50 feet away, a man in an impeccable white suit had just witnessed everything. Harrison Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, and the very man Derek was racing to impress, had stepped outside for air moments before he was scheduled to dedicate the new pediatric wing. He'd been taking a final quiet moment before the chaos began when he heard the shouting. Now he stood frozen, watching a pregnant woman collapse to her knees on the wet concrete, her sobs barely audible over the rain. Some moments change everything. This was one of them. The speedometer climbed past 70 as Derek wove through traffic, one hand on the wheel, the other adjusting his tie in the rearview mirror. The BMW's leather interior smelled like his expensive cologne, and Maya's fear, a combination that would have bothered him if he'd been paying attention to anything other than his own reflection. "This is it, Maya. This is everything I've worked for." His voice was tight, rehearsed, like he'd been practicing this speech in his head for days. Harrison Sterling himself is dedicating that pediatric wing. Every executive in the company will be there. Every decision maker, every person who matters. Maya pressed her hand against the window, trying to breathe through the contraction that was building like a wave inside her. The white maternity gown she'd chosen so carefully that morning, the one Derek said made her look presentable enough, was now damp with sweat. Her jewelry, the diamond earrings his mother had given her last Christmas, felt suddenly too heavy. "Derek," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Something's wrong. The pain. It's not normal. It's too early." He didn't even glance at her. "You're fine. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. You don't see them making it into a production." Another contraction hit, sharper this time, stealing her breath. Maya doubled over, gasping, and Derek's jaw tightened with irritation rather than concern. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" He swerved around a slower car, horn blaring. "Do you have any idea what's on the line? The VP of Operations track begins in 6 months. 6 months, Maya. Sterling remembers faces. He remembers who shows up and who doesn't. And you want me to miss this because you're having some cramps?" "These aren't cramps," Maya managed, tears streaming down her face now. "Derek, please, I'm scared." "You're always scared." His voice was cold enough to frost the windows. "Scared to go back to work after the baby? Scared to let me network without you? Scared I'll finally see that I've been carrying dead weight for 3 years. The words hit harder than any physical pain. Maya stared at the side of his face, searching for the man she'd fallen in love with, the one who'd promised her forever over candlelight dinners and whispered promises. That man was gone, or maybe he'd never existed at all. The hospital loomed ahead, its emergency sign glowing red in the gray afternoon. Maya felt a flicker of relief. Help was close. But Derek didn't turn into the parking garage. He didn't even slow down until the very last second, pulling up to the emergency entrance with a screech of brakes that made a passing nurse jump. "Out," he said flatly. Maya turned to him, her hand instinctively protective over her belly. "What?" "I said get out. I'll pick you up when I'm done." He reached across her, popping open the passenger door. Cold air and mist rushed in, and Maya felt the first drops of rain hit her bare shoulders. "Derek, I don't have my purse. I don't have my insurance card or my phone or—" "Figure it out, Maya. You're a grown woman." His eyes were already on his phone, checking the time. "I've spent 3 years making excuses for you. 3 years explaining why my girlfriend works at a non-profit instead of a real company. 3 years pretending I don't notice the way other executives look at their wives and then look at you." He finally turned to face her, and his expression was pure contempt. "You want to be taken care of? There's a hospital full of people whose job is to do that. Stop sabotaging my future because you can't handle a little discomfort. If you would never abandon your pregnant partner at the hospital just to get ahead at work, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happened next is something Maya would never forget. And Derek would spend years trying to erase. She stepped out into the rain, legs trembling, and before she could even close the door, Derek reached over and slammed it himself. The BMW's tires squealed against wet pavement as he accelerated away, leaving her standing there in her white gown, jewelry glinting under the harsh emergency lights, more alone than she'd ever been in her life. And 50 feet away, a man in an impeccable white suit had just witnessed everything. The taillights disappeared into the rain like dying embers, and Maya stood frozen on the curb, her brain unable to process what had just happened. Her hand was still outstretched, reaching for a car that was already 6 blocks away, racing toward a future that didn't include her. The rain fell harder now, soaking through her white gown, turning the fabric translucent against her skin. She looked down at herself, 8 months pregnant, barefoot because she'd kicked off her shoes in the car during a contraction, wearing jewelry worth more than her monthly salary but without a single dollar in her pocket. No phone, no ID, no insurance card, nothing but the baby inside her and the devastating realization that the man she'd trusted with her life had just thrown her away, like garbage. Another contraction ripped through her, and Maya's knees buckled. She caught herself against the emergency room's brick wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the cold, wet concrete, her cascade of dark waves plastered to her face, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. The elegant woman who'd left the house that morning was gone, replaced by someone she didn't recognize, abandoned, powerless, terrified. "Help," she whispered, but the word came out as barely a breath. "Somebody please help me." It breaks my heart that Maya had to face that emergency room all alone. Comment "Stay strong" below to show support for all the mothers who have been abandoned when they needed help the most. Don't ignore this. Show them they aren't alone. 50 feet away, partially hidden by the covered walkway leading from the new pediatric wing, Harrison Sterling had stopped mid-stride. He'd been reaching for his car keys, exhausted from 3 hours of smiling for cameras and shaking hands with donors who saw him as a wallet rather than a person. The upcoming ceremony promised to be everything his PR team wanted. Polished, impressive, perfectly choreographed. But right now, he just needed one last breath of real air before putting on his public face. Then he'd heard the shouting. Harrison had watched the entire exchange with growing horror. The expensive car, the man in the suit checking his watch while his pregnant partner begged, the door slamming, the callous abandon. He'd seen cruelty before. Corporate boardrooms were full of it. But this was something different. This was personal. This was a man looking at the mother of his child and seeing only an obstacle to his ambition. The white suit Harrison wore, custom-tailored and immaculate, suddenly felt absurd. What good was wealth if it couldn't stop moments like this? What good was power if it couldn't protect people who needed it most? He watched Maya collapse against the wall, watched her body shake with sobs and pain, watched her try to stand and fail. And in that moment, Harrison Sterling made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. He stepped out of the shadows. Maya looked up through blurred vision and saw him, tall, imposing, with a dark beard and eyes that held something she hadn't seen in Derek's face in months. Concern. Genuine, human concern. "Miss," Harrison said quietly, kneeling beside her without regard for his expensive suit touching wet pavement. "My name is Harrison. I saw what happened. Please, let me help you." Maya wanted to say she was fine, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but another contraction hit, stealing her words, and all she could do was nod as this stranger in white reached out his hand like an angel she didn't know she'd been praying for. Derek thought he could throw Maya away like trash, but karma had other plans. Like this video if you believe that what goes around always comes back around. Harrison's hand was warm and steady, and Maya gripped it like a lifeline as he helped her to her feet. She wobbled, another wave of pain threatening to drag her back down, but his other arm came around her shoulders, supporting her weight with effortless strength. "Easy," he said softly, his voice a stark contrast to Derek's sharp impatience. "Take your time. We're not in a rush." "We." The word almost broke her. When was the last time someone had said "we" and actually meant it? They moved slowly toward the emergency entrance, Harrison matching his pace to hers, never once making her feel like a burden. The automatic doors slid open, and warm air rushed out to meet them. But Maya barely noticed. All she could focus on was putting one foot in front of the other and trying not to collapse in front of this kind stranger who'd already seen her at her lowest. The emergency room was chaos. A crying child in one corner, an elderly man clutching his chest on a gurney. nurses moving with practiced urgency between patients who all needed help simultaneously. The registration desk looked overwhelmed, a tired woman with a headset frantically typing while 3 people waited impatiently in line. Harrison guided Maya past the line, past the irritated looks from those who'd been waiting, straight to a nurse who was emerging from a treatment room. "Excuse me," Harrison said, his tone polite but carrying an authority that made the nurse stop immediately. "This woman is 8 months pregnant and experiencing severe contractions. She needs immediate attention." The nurse's eyes swept over Maya, her soaked gown, her bare feet, the obvious distress, and her expression shifted from annoyed to alarmed. "Right this way. Can you walk, honey?" Maya nodded, though she wasn't sure it was true. Harrison kept his arm around her as they followed the nurse to a triage room, where the fluorescent lights were somehow both too bright and too clinical. "I'll need to get some information," the nurse said, pulling up a screen. "Name?" "Maya Brooks," she whispered, sinking onto the examination table with relief. "Date of birth? Insurance provider?" Maya's throat tightened. I don't have my insurance card. My fiancé—" The word tasted like ash. "He drove away before I could get my purse." The nurse's typing paused. Her expression remained neutral, but Maya saw the judgment flash across her face. Another single mother without insurance. Another problem for an already overburdened emergency room. "Ma'am, without insurance information, I'll need to—" "That won't be necessary." Harrison's voice cut through the room like a blade wrapped in silk. He reached into his jacket and produced a black card, the kind Maya had only seen in movies, the kind with no spending limit and a weight that suggested it was made of something more valuable than plastic. The nurse's eyes widened. She recognized it immediately. "Whatever treatment Miss Brooks needs, whatever specialists need to be called, whatever medications are required, charge it to this card." Harrison placed it on the counter with the casual confidence of someone for whom money was never an obstacle. "I want her moved to the maternity ward's private suite. The best attending physician, 24-hour monitoring." Derek chased a paycheck and lost everything. Harrison chose kindness and gained a family. If you believe love is more important than money, turn on post notifications. "Sir," the nurse stammered, "the private suites are usually reserved for patients whose care I'm personally guaranteeing." Harrison's tone left no room for argument. "And one more thing, my name stays out of all paperwork. List the charges as covered by the Sterling Foundation Medical Assistance Program. Miss Brooks doesn't need to know who paid. She just needs to know she's safe." Maya stared at him through tears, unable to comprehend this stranger's kindness. "Why are you doing this?" Harrison looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression made her think he saw more than just a woman in crisis. He saw someone worth saving. "Because someone should have," he said simply. And clearly, the person who was supposed to chose not to. 3 days later, Maya held her daughter for the first time in a private suite that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital room. The walls were painted soft cream, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and the bassinet beside her bed was the kind you saw in celebrity birth announcements, not public hospital wards. Iria Rose Brooks weighed 6 pounds, 3 ounces, and had her mother's dark eyes and a cry that could shatter glass. Maya counted her fingers, traced the curve of her tiny nose, and felt something shift inside her. A transformation from woman to warrior. This baby would never doubt she was wanted. The nurses said the complications had stabilized quickly once she'd received proper care. The cramping was from dehydration and stress. The baby was healthy. Everything was fine, thanks to someone's anonymous generosity. Maya had asked repeatedly who paid for the suite, the specialists, the meals delivered on actual china. But everyone just smiled and mentioned something about a foundation program. On the fourth morning, after Arya had been fed and was sleeping peacefully, Maya reached for her phone, the one the hospital social worker had retrieved from Derek's apartment, along with some of her belongings. Her hands shook as she pulled up his contact. She didn't know what she'd say. Maybe he'd been in shock. Maybe he'd panicked. Maybe once he knew Arya was here, healthy and beautiful, he'd realize what he was about to lose. She pressed call. The number you have reached is no longer in service. Maya tried again. Same message. She switched to text. Message failed to deliver. You have been blocked by this contact. The phone slipped from her fingers onto the pristine white sheets. He'd blocked her. Didn't even want to know if his daughter had survived. Didn't care if Maya was alive or dead. She was just a problem he'd deleted, a contact removed, a chapter closed. Derek thought he could throw Maya away like trash, but karma had other plans. Like this video if you believe that what goes around always comes back around. Maya pulled Arya closer, breathing in that new baby smell that already felt like home, and made a promise. You will never beg for a man's attention. You will never shrink yourself to fit someone's ambition. I'll make sure of it. 2 weeks after discharge, living in a modest, extended-stay hotel room because she couldn't afford first and last month's rent anywhere, Maya found an envelope slipped under her door. The paper was expensive, cream-colored, with embossed lettering that read, "The Sterling Foundation." Inside was a letter typed on letterhead that practically screamed wealth and legitimacy. Dear Ms. Brooks, congratulations on the birth of your daughter. The Sterling Foundation has identified you as a candidate for our Women in Transition program, designed to support mothers rebuilding their lives during challenging circumstances. We are pleased to offer you a 6-month housing grant in one of our partner department communities, childcare assistance through our corporate daycare network, an interview for a position in our community outreach division. No repayment is required. This is an investment in your future and your daughter's future. Please contact the number below to schedule your intake appointment. Maya read it 3 times, certain it was a mistake. Foundations didn't just randomly select single mothers. People didn't get housing grants without applications and waiting lists. This kind of thing didn't happen to women like her. But when she called the number, a professional voice confirmed every detail. An apartment was waiting. The interview was scheduled for next week. Someone, somewhere, had decided Maya Brooks deserved a second chance. She just didn't know that someone was the man in the white suit who couldn't stop thinking about the woman he'd found crying in the rain. The Sterling Foundation Community Outreach Office occupied the entire 15th floor of a glass tower that reflected clouds like mirrors. Maya stepped off the elevator on her first day, carrying Arya in a baby sling, and a determination that felt heavier than any briefcase. The apartment they'd given her had 2 bedrooms and windows that actually opened. The daycare was 3 blocks away and cost nothing. This job was her chance to prove Derek wrong about everything. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was a grandmother who'd built her career helping people society forgot. You'll coordinate our housing assistance program, she explained, walking Maya through cubicles where people actually smiled at each other. Connect families with resources. Be the bridge between need and solution. It was perfect. It was purpose. It was everything Maya had been searching for, while Derek dragged her to networking events where people measured worth in stock options. 3 months in, Maya had helped 23 families find housing. She worked through lunch, stayed late after picking up Arya, and poured herself into making sure no one else felt as abandoned as she had on that hospital curb. She was reviewing applications one evening when the office door opened and someone walked in. Tall, commanding presence, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car used to. Maya glanced up, ready to direct another executive to the correct floor. Then she froze. The dark beard, the kind eyes, the man from the hospital. "You," she breathed. Harrison Sterling stopped in the doorway, and something like relief crossed his face. "Hello, Maya. You're him. The Sterling Foundation, the apartment, the job." Her voice climbed with each realization. "You've been watching me?" "Ensuring you were safe," Harrison corrected gently, stepping inside but keeping his distance, hands visible like he was approaching something fragile. "There's a difference." Maya stood, her chair rolling back, Arya stirring in the sling against her chest. "Why? Why would the CEO of Sterling Industries care about some random woman at a hospital?" "Because you weren't random." Harrison's voice carried weight, like he'd been holding this conversation in his head for months. "You were a woman abandoned by a man who should have protected you. And He paused, jaw tightening. "I watched my mother die alone while I was in boardrooms chasing deals that meant nothing. I swore if I ever had a chance to actually help someone who needed it, I wouldn't walk away." The honesty in his voice cracked something open in Maya's chest. "The man who left me? Derek. He was trying to impress you that night. The dedication ceremony." Harrison's expression darkened. "Derek Morrison, mid-level executive. I remember him." His tone suggested the memory wasn't pleasant. He gave a speech about family values that very night, oblivious to the fact that his own family was suffering in a hospital room paid for by a stranger. "I've been watching him ever since." "Why?" "Because men like that need to understand actions have consequences." Harrison finally moved closer, his eyes dropping to Arya, who was waking up, tiny fist rubbing her face. "And because I wanted to make sure you never needed him again." Derek chased a paycheck and lost everything. Harrison chose kindness and gained a family. If you believe love is more important than money, turn on post notifications. Maya felt tears threatening. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," Harrison said softly. "Just let me keep knowing you're okay. That's enough." 2 years changed everything. Derek Morrison's office occupied the 23rd floor now, with a view that stretched across the city like a conquered kingdom. His name was on short lists. His face appeared in industry magazines, and his signature was on deals that made other executives envious. He'd clawed his way up through strategic alliances, calculated betrayals, and a willingness to sacrifice anything, anyone, who stood between him and the next promotion. The VP of Operations position was finally within reach. All he needed was Harrison Sterling's approval, and Derek had spent 2 years making himself indispensable. He stayed late, arrived early, volunteered for every high-profile project, and made sure his name was attached to every success while distancing himself from every failure. Maya Brooks was a memory he'd successfully deleted. He'd blocked her number, avoided mutual friends, and crafted a narrative where she'd been unstable, and he'd had to make difficult choices for his career. When colleagues asked about his personal life, Derek smiled and said he was focused on the company family now. No one needed to know about the pregnant woman he'd left on a curb. He was untouchable, or so he believed. 300 miles away, in a penthouse that overlooked the harbor, Maya Brooks, now Maya Sterling, woke to morning light filtering through silk curtains, and her daughter's laughter echoing from the kitchen. She padded barefoot across the marble floors to find Harrison teaching Aria how to flip pancakes, both of them covered in flour and wearing matching grins. "Mommy!" Aria shrieked, abandoning the spatula to run into Maya's arms. At 2 years old, she was all energy and joy, completely unaware that her biological father had never asked her name. Harrison looked up, and the smile he gave Maya still made her heart skip. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling." The title still felt surreal. They'd married 6 months ago in a private garden ceremony, with only Aria and Mrs. Chen as witnesses. No press, no corporate spectacle. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of Maya's worst day and built something real from the ruins. If you believe love is more important than money, turn on post notifications. Harrison had proposed on the anniversary of the night he'd found her. Same hospital entrance, same rain. But this time, he was on one knee offering forever instead of just rescue. Maya said yes before he finished asking. The marriage merged more than their lives. As Harrison's spouse, Maya now held voting shares in Sterling Industries, a controlling interest that made her one of the most powerful voices in the company. Harrison had insisted. "You've rebuilt more lives in 2 years than most executives do in careers," he'd told her during the legal paperwork. "You deserve a seat at every table." Maya used that power quietly, championing programs for working mothers, expanding childcare benefits, ensuring no employee ever faced the choice between family and career the way Derek had forced on her. She didn't know Derek was still at the company. Harrison had never mentioned him, but Harrison knew exactly where Derek Morrison was, had tracked every promotion, every quarterly review, every step up the ladder that brought him closer to the boardroom where Maya now held court. Karma, Harrison had learned, wasn't about revenge. It was about timing, and Derek's time was almost up. The email arrived at 8:47 a.m. on a Thursday, marked urgent with red flags and sender credentials that made Derek's pulse quicken. Executive Administration, Office of the CEO. "Mr. Morrison, your presence is requested in the Executive Boardroom, 40th floor, today at 2 Sahar p.m. sharp. Mr. Sterling and the company's newly appointed confidential board advisor will be conducting final interviews for the VP of Operations position. Please bring your portfolio and be prepared to discuss your vision for the role's future. Regards, Sterling Industries Executive Board." Derek read it 7 times, each pass making his smile wider. This was it, the meeting he'd sacrificed everything for. 2 years of 80-hour weeks, of stepped-on colleagues, of calculated presentations designed to make him look indispensable. 2 years of erasing his past and rewriting himself as the perfect corporate soldier. He'd won. The morning became a ritual of preparation. Derek tried on 4 different suits before settling on the Navy Tom Ford. Expensive enough to signal success, conservative enough to show respect. He spent 20 minutes on his tie alone, practicing the knot until it sat perfectly centered. His shoes were polished to mirrors. His hair was gelled into submission. Even his cologne was strategic. The same brand Harrison Sterling wore, subtly telegraphing that he belonged in the same echelon. Standing before his full-length mirror, Derek rehearsed his opening lines. "Mr. Sterling, it's an honor to finally meet you formally." Too stiff. "Harrison, I've been looking forward to this." Too familiar. "Thank you for this opportunity to discuss Sterling Industries' future." Perfect. Confident but deferential. He practiced his handshake, firm but not aggressive. 2 pumps, direct eye contact, the smile that had charmed his way through a dozen promotions. Derek thought he'd erased every obstacle. The colleagues he'd undermined were gone, transferred, or quit. The projects he'd stolen credit for were ancient history. And Maya, that complication from his old life, was buried so deep she might as well have never existed. Derek thought he could throw Maya away like trash, but karma had other plans. Like this video if you believe that what goes around always comes back around. His phone buzzed. A text from Gerald, his only remaining friend in the company. "Dude, I heard about your 2 p.m. That's the meeting. VP is yours. Congrats." Derek smiled, typing back, "Just doing what it takes to win." At 1:30, he left his office, ignoring the jealous stares from colleagues who knew exactly where he was going. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to heaven. Executive territory, where decisions that shaped thousands of lives happened behind mahogany doors. The receptionist outside the boardroom was new, professional, wearing a headset and typing with mechanical efficiency. "Mr. Morrison." "That's me." "They're ready for you. Go right in." Derek straightened his tie one last time, rolled his shoulders back, and reached for the door handle. Behind that door was everything he'd ever wanted. Power, status, validation, the VP title that would cement his legacy. He pushed the door open, smile perfect. Hand extended for a victorious handshake. And then he saw her. The boardroom was exactly what Derek had imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table so polished it reflected the recessed lighting like still water. Leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars. Power hung in the air like expensive cologne. Harrison Sterling stood at the far end of the room, backlit by the afternoon sun, wearing a white suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. The dark beard, the commanding presence, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Derek had studied this man's public appearances for 2 years, memorizing every detail, every mannerism, every reported preference. "Mr. Morrison." Harrison's voice was measured, giving nothing away. "Thank you for joining us." "Mr. Sterling, it's an honor." Derek's rehearsed line came out smooth, confident, his hand extended for the handshake he'd practiced. "I've been looking forward to—" "Before we begin," Harrison interrupted, not taking Derek's hand, "I'd like you to meet someone. Our new strategic advisor recently returned from maternity leave and will be conducting the final approval for this position." He gestured to the chair at the head of the table, currently facing away. "She's quite particular about company culture and the character of our leadership team." Derek's smile never wavered. Another corporate wife playing businesswoman. He'd charmed dozens of them at networking events. This would be easy. "I'd be delighted to—" The chair swiveled. Time stopped. Every sound in the room, the hum of air conditioning, the distant traffic 40 floors below. Derek's own heartbeat was swallowed by the roaring silence in his head. Maya. But not the Maya he'd abandoned. Not the woman in the rain-soaked maternity gown, barefoot and crying on a hospital curb. This Maya wore a tailored cream suit that probably cost more than his monthly salary. Her dark waves were styled in elegant waves that cascaded over one shoulder. Diamond earrings, not the modest ones from his mother, but the kind that required insurance policies, caught the light. Her makeup was flawless, highlighting features Derek had once called too plain for executive events. She looked like she belonged at the head of this table, like she'd been born for it. And her eyes, when they met his, held absolutely no warmth. "Hello, Derek." Her voice was steady, professional, the voice of someone who held all the cards and knew it. The color drained from Derek's face so fast he felt dizzy. His extended hand dropped to his side. His perfect smile crumbled into something between shock and horror. "Maya?" It came out as a whisper, then louder, desperate. What are you doing here?" Harrison moved to stand behind Maya's chair, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Maya Sterling, Chief Operating Officer of the Sterling Foundation, and as of 6 months ago, majority shareholder in Sterling Industries." Derek's knees almost buckled. "If you believe what goes around always comes back around, you're about to see karma deliver the performance of a lifetime." Derek's brain scrambled for purchase, for any explanation that would make this nightmare make sense. His mouth opened and closed like a drowning man gasping for air. Finally, words tumbled out in a desperate rush. "Maya, wow, this is amazing. I'm so happy for you." The lie was transparent, his smile grotesque. "I had no idea you'd done so well. You look incredible, really. And married to Mr. Sterling, that's wonderful." His eyes darted between them, searching for mercy. "Listen, I know things ended badly between us, but that was so long ago. We were different people. I'm sure we can be professional about professional." Harrison's voice cut through Derek's rambling like a guillotine blade. He stepped forward, and suddenly the room felt smaller, the air thinner. "That's an interesting word coming from you, Mr. Morrison." Derek's forced smile faltered. "I'm sorry? You see, I have this memory that won't leave me alone." Harrison's tone was conversational, but his eyes were ice. 2 years ago, I was at St. Catherine's Hospital for a dedication ceremony. Important event, lots of executives trying to impress me. He paused, letting the date sink in. I stepped outside for some air, and I witnessed something remarkable. The blood drained from Derek's face. I watched a man throw his pregnant fiancée out of his car at an emergency room entrance. Harrison's voice never rose, but the fury beneath it was molten. I saw him look at her like she was nothing but a burden. I watched him speed away to attend my event while she collapsed on wet concrete, 8 months pregnant, no insurance, no phone, no help. Derek's legs trembled. "I can explain." "Can you?" Maya's voice was sharp now, the professional veneer cracking to reveal the woman who'd survived what he'd done to her. "Can you explain why our daughter's birth certificate has a blank space where her father's name should be? Can you explain why you blocked my number before you even knew if we survived?" "Our daughter?" Derek's voice broke. You had the baby?" "Her name is Arya," Harrison said coldly. "Not that you ever cared enough to ask." He moved to stand directly beside Maya, a united front. "This company was built on integrity. My father taught me that how you treat people when they can't benefit you reveals who you really are. And you, Mr. Morrison, revealed yourself completely that night." Derek thought he could throw Maya away like trash. But karma had other plans. Like this video if you believe that what goes around always comes back around. Maya opened a leather portfolio, her hands steady. "Derek Morrison, based on a comprehensive review of your conduct, both professional and personal, I'm casting my vote to deny your promotion." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Furthermore, I'm recommending immediate termination of your employment with Sterling Industries." "You can't," Derek started. "I can." Maya's voice was steel. "Majority shareholder. Watch me." Harrison pressed a button on the table. 2 security guards entered immediately, clearly waiting for this exact moment. "Gentlemen," Please escort Mr. Morrison from the building. He has 1 hour to collect his personal belongings under supervision. His security clearance is revoked effective immediately. Derek looked between them, desperation morphing into rage. This is revenge. This is personal. No, Maya said quietly, standing now, her full height matching his, her presence dwarfing him. This is consequences. Something you thought you'd outrun. The security guards each took an arm, and Derek was led toward the door. Powerless, humiliated, exactly as helpless as he'd left Maya standing in the rain. At the threshold, Maya called out one last time. Derek. He turned, hope flickering stupidly in his eyes. Arya noticed the other fathers at the park today. She asked me, "Where's my Dada?" I told her some people are too small to hold the love they're given. Maya's smile was sad, but free. Thank you for proving me right. The door closed, and Maya Sterling, formerly Maya Brooks, sat back down at the head of the table where she belonged, not because a man gave it to her, but because she'd earned it by surviving the worst and choosing to become better instead of bitter. Outside the window, the city sprawled below, full of people making choices that would echo through their lives. Derek Morrison had made his, and karma had collected the debt.